Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Aaron.
Aaron is right here, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I hope everyone's having a fantastic Sunday evening. A really interesting update that I wanted to discuss briefly. I'm going to try to keep this video 15 minutes or less. Danny Masterson, it's been largely understood, was absolutely going to be appealing his criminal conviction. And he had 60 days. I made some notes. Let me make sure I try to get these dates correctly. He had 60 days, if I can pull up my notes here, from the sentencing. So 60 days from September 7th to actually file the appeal. So 4 days before, on November 3rd, just days before that deadline was up, he did actually file his appeal. And but instead of filing the actual appeal, he filed the paperwork that said, we'd like extra time to file the appeal. Is that okay? And the judge does seem to have said, sure, why not? I mean, I guess you're going away 30 to life. Why not give you a few extra 45 extra days? So now, guys, this opens up a little bit of a can of worms, and stick with me here because this is going to get really interesting really quickly. So first of all, here's the Second Appellate District of California, November 3rd. Now look at this first line item when it says notice of appeal lodged, and you'll see that it says notice of appeal filed September 18th. Okay, so I've spoken to some people to try to fully understand how all these dates fit together here, and here's how it's been explained to me. September 18th, Danny's team filed a notice of appeal in Judge Almeida's courtroom, the courtroom where he was tried and convicted, even though the appeal does not get dealt with by the same judge or the same court or any of that stuff. That notice of appeal on September 18th is basically a notification to the judge and to the clerk. Preserve all records. Of course, all the records are already being preserved, but prepare to produce all records needed for the appeal. Okay. But that doesn't reset the clock or anything like that. So they filed the notice in Judge Almeida's courtroom on September 18th. And then it simply took them until November 3rd, again, just days before the deadline was up, to then file the paperwork with the Second Appellate District. And you can see here, the first line item says notice of appeal lodged. Second line item says requested extension of time. And the third item there is granted extension of time. I got to be honest, I don't know how the request and the request for the extension and the granting of the extension are all happening at the exact same time, but I don't know how this works. I'll have a conversation with my lawyer friend, Zach, about all this stuff. Okay. Now there's some other interesting information when we click through on some of the links associated with this record. Check this out. Okay. This is parties and attorneys, the people versus Masterson again. And this is as filed with the Second Appellate Court. This is not just the original case filing. Look who's still representing Danny Masterson. Philip K. Cohen. Now you might go, Aaron, what's the big deal? Philip Cohen's been his defense attorney for years now. Yeah, Philip Cohen is Danny Masterson's defense attorney. He was not supposed to be Danny Masterson's appellate attorney. So in the notes from the hearing, and actually back, in the transcript from the sentencing, there was 2 extra lawyers that showed up. In addition to Philip Cohen, in addition to Sean Hawley, who was Danny's defense team, there were 2 appellate specialist lawyers from San Diego who showed up. A Benjamin L. Coleman and an Alan S. Yokelson, 2 separate appellate specialists out of San Diego. They each seem to have their own firms. And I will very briefly refer you to an article here where even Danny's defense attorney, Sean Hawley, referenced the appellate team. Attorney Sean Hawley spoke to reporters following Masterson's hearing on September 7th, alleging that a top team of appellate lawyers found a number of significant evidentiary and constitutional issues in transcripts from the trial. The errors which occurred in this case are substantial and unfortunately led to verdicts which are not supported by the evidence. And though we have great respect for the jury in this case and for our system of justice overall, sometimes they get it wrong, and that's what happened here. Hawley argued that her client did not commit the crimes for which he's been convicted, asserting that she and a team of the best and the brightest appellate lawyers are confident that these convictions will be overturned. Why in the world would the appellate lawyers not be the attorneys on record in the second appellate division for the appeal? I have some theories, and I'll also have a conversation with my lawyer friend Zach about this. But could it have anything to do with the fact that, oopsie, Danny owes the IRS $128,000? This is from a blog post on the Scientology Money Project blog written by Jeffrey Augustine. I've linked to this blog post in the description down below. As reported by Radar, Danny Masterson and Bijou Phillips have been hit with an IRS tax lien for $128,000 plus for unpaid taxes in the years 2019, 2020, and 2021. The tax lien was filed February 3rd, 2023. Holy cow, before Danny was even convicted. So, okay, what does a tax lien have to do with him getting new attorneys? Can Danny Masterson not afford to pay for his appellate specialist lawyers? Now you might go, Aaron, if he can't afford to pay for those lawyers, how can he afford to keep paying Philip Cohen? And this is where someone else explained something to me, but I will address this further in my conversation with my lawyer friend Zach. I was told this. First of all, I was told it is unheard of to use the same attorney for your appeal, and that Philip Cohen cannot drop, or any lawyer cannot drop a client until the whole issue is resolved, meaning the appellate. Like, Cohen can't drop Danny as a client during this appeals process if Danny doesn't have another lawyer. Even if Danny can't pay Philip Cohen has to keep representing Danny. I didn't know this is how it worked, guys. My mind was blown today when this was explained to me. And it was explained to me, this is one of the reasons why lawyers charge so much for retainers, because if you go broke while they're representing you, they have to keep representing you. If the money runs out, you're stuck with your client until you're stuck with them. Once you're the attorney of record, once you are the attorney of record, you're stuck representing your client, whether they can pay you or not. This is hard for me to believe, guys, but once it was being explained to me, I was like, I guess I do understand that, right? Otherwise, lawyers could just drop clients in the middle of proceedings. I was told it's very hard to get yourself removed as the attorney of record, and the judge has to approve it. And so, I mean, we are for sure, guys, admittedly in speculation territory here. I mean, is it possible that the appellate process, we're so early on in the appellate process, that there's just no reason for the appellate attorneys to be the attorney on record? I don't know. Why wouldn't you expect, like, if you've hired them, wouldn't you expect their names to be on the paperwork? I don't know, guys. I grew up in a cult. I don't know much, but my lawyer friend Zach does know much, and I'll be talking with him about this. This brings up another question. I very briefly said in a video, I don't know, in the last week or two, that my inside sources tell me Bijou Phillips is on her way out of Scientology. Now, if you follow Bijou Phillips and her non-Scientologist friends on Instagram, particularly the non-Scientologist friends that she had before she ever met Danny Masterson, you will see that Bijou is becoming a little bit of a socialite again, attending all sorts of wild parties and shenanigans on both coasts. Not the kind of, so when you see who she's hanging out with, when you see the kind of stuff that they're doing, when you see the kind of very prophetic music, the lyrics that they're posting in their videos, it sure does seem like Bijou's on her way out of Scientology. Okay, so what does that have to do with this? Well, I refer you back to, boom, $128,000 tax bill. Who do you think is going to pay that bill? The guy who's in prison? This tax bill was levied against these guys when they were still a married couple. Is Bijou on the hook for all this money? What does this have to do with anything? What does this have to do with her leaving Scientology? What does her leaving Scientology have to do with the tax bill? Do you guys know what the easiest way for Bijou Phillips to pay this tax bill, to support herself for the rest of her life, and to move on and actually be able to, have a real life? To leave Scientology and write a book. I'm told Bijou could easily get it to easily. I mean, look, I don't know, guys. I'm just repeating what's been told to me. I've been told Bijou could get a $10 million book deal if she was willing to spill all the beans. And all the beans does not just mean Danny Masterson and Scientology. All the beans means her family, her childhood, all them beans. Now, if I'm Bijou, I think I'm taking that deal. I absolutely think I'm taking that deal. And if I'm Bijou, I'm not paying for my husband's appellate attorneys. But I'm curious to know what the rules are about that. I'll talk to my lawyer friend Zach about that as well. If Bijou goes out and gets a book deal, gets millions of dollars, it doesn't really matter if it's 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million. We're talking millions. Is she on the hook for her husband's attorney's fees? That's an interesting question. Okay, so if we go back to this first page here, the court has already said basically, okay, Danny, we're going to give you an extra 45 days. You need to have your appeal. And I guess this is like the appellate equivalent of what you might call a complaint in a civil suit. Anyway, your actual appeal, like what you're actually asking for, why, what your arguments are. Danny has until December 22nd. Mark that date on your calendar, folks. He has until December 22nd to file his actual appeal, not just some request for additional time. So I guess it probably stands to reason that by December 22nd, if the appellate specialist superstars are not by that point attorneys on record for this appeal, I feel like we can reasonably conclude that Danny simply cannot afford to hire new attorneys, which brings up the question whether he can even afford to pay Philip Cohen. And I'm just dying to understand the dynamics. How do the dynamics of the attorney-client relationship change when the client can no longer afford to pay you? I mean, I guess the attorney still has to do the best job that they can, right? They can't just, pay lip service to the whole thing, right? There's got to be some professional standards of conduct in circumstances like this. And I wonder how rare that circumstance is, especially with a high-profile celebrity client. How rare is it that an attorney gets, saddled with one of these celebrity clients who goes through years of appeals process and can't pay the damn lawyers? Much to talk about, much to discuss, much to learn. And that's one of the things I enjoy most about, doing videos about these subjects is how much I'm able to learn about the process along the way. Okay, let's see. Let me check my notes. I think we hit all the important items here. Okay. It also does seem that for Cohen, the fact that Cohen's even still the attorney of record, or even if he continues to be, it does seem to indicate they're not going to be able to use the ineffective counsel argument for grounds for appeal. Just throws that right out. You can't say I was incorrectly found guilty due to ineffective counsel and I'm still using the same counsel. I'm pretty sure you can't do that. But anyway, I'll discuss that with my lawyer friend Zach as well. Okay, we covered the IRS filing. We covered that. Guys, I do suggest that you, even merely for entertainment purposes, follow Bijou Phillips on Instagram, follow Nikki Hilton on Instagram, and you can figure out from their posts and their stories who else you might want to follow to see what Bijou's up to these days. Not the normal stuff you'd expect her to be up to, being a good little Scientologist, trying to keep her life together, figure out how to, move forward. No, Bijou's definitely leaving Scientology if Instagram is any clue whatsoever. All right, guys. That's probably it for me for today in terms of live streams, but I do think I have some uploads coming later this evening. So anyway, thank you for hanging out with me this evening. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock
Is it
and roll
working?
songs,
Is my outro not working?
okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not,